What if avoiding solitude is slowly weakening you and you don't even realize it? I'm 75 years old. And for most of my life, being alone terrified me. I filled every silence with work, screens, noise, or conversation. Anything but quiet. I believed solitude was a threat, not a tool. And so I kept running from it until life forced me to stop. In that stillness, I expected to feel broken. Instead, I felt something return focus, calm, clarity. Solitude wasn't taking anything from me. It was giving me back parts of myself I didn't know I'd lost. This was not just aging, it was something deeper. I wanted to understand what was happening, so I turned to science. What I found changed everything. Neuroscience, psychology, even sociology each pointed to one truth. Solitude, when embraced, can sharpen the mind, calm the body, and rebuild emotional strength. This is not just my story. It's a quiet warning to anyone constantly surrounded, yet secretly depleted. Let me show you what solitude can actually do. Chapter 1: Sharpening my focus. When my wife passed away several years ago, solitude arrived without invitation. The evenings were painfully quiet, but as time passed, I noticed something unexpected. My concentration improved. I began reading again books I'd long abandoned. Writing returned to me, and with it, a sense of mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. Curious, I turned to neuroscience. Research shows that solitude reduces overstimulation in the brain's prefrontal cortex, the center of decision-making and focus. Constant interaction depletes it. In solitude, that system can reset. What felt like emptiness was, in truth, recovery. I wasn't shutting down, I was sharpening. This wasn't a mental decline, it was mental restoration. The quiet gave my brain the space to process, to recalibrate. And in that space, attention returned. Thought deepened. I realized that being constantly surrounded had diluted my thinking. But solitude, uninterrupted, undemanding, helped it resurface, stronger. If you're watching this, you're already doing something rare. You're giving your mind a chance to breathe. And in doing so, you're not only helping yourself, you're showing others it's okay to pause. If this insight resonated, leave a comment. Share this with someone who can't seem to focus anymore. Let's remind the world. Sometimes the sharpest minds are shaped in silence. Chapter 2: Improving Emotional Health. Anxiety followed me for most of my adult life. I assumed solitude would make it worse, that silence would amplify fear. But to my surprise, the opposite happened. As the noise of daily life faded, so did the internal tension. Quiet evenings, once uncomfortable, became my sanctuary. The stillness I had feared began soothing me. I found studies that explain this shift. Solitude reduces cortisol, the hormone linked to chronic stress, and helps regulate serotonin, which stabilizes mood. In other words, being alone gives your nervous system space to recover. This wasn't just emotional, it was biochemical. Solitude didn't isolate me. It stabilized me. Without constant input from people, screens, and noise, my emotional swings softened. I stopped reacting to every small frustration. I started breathing more slowly, responding more thoughtfully. Emotional resilience wasn't something I had to force, it emerged naturally from the stillness. Solitude became a reset button for my nervous system. By watching this, you're already choosing stillness over stimulation. That choice benefits your emotional health and models something powerful for others. If this truth landed with you, comment below. Like the video if you've ever found peace in being alone, and if you know someone who's drowning in noise, send this to them. Let's make space for quiet healing, one mind at a time. Chapter 3: Enhancing Creativity. I didn't consider myself a creative person for most of my life. I was practical, analytical, focused on results. But during extended solitude, something shifted. I started sketching again. I wrote short reflections. I even redesigned parts of my garden. What I assumed was boredom turned out to be something deeper. My mind finally had room to imagine. Science explains this. Solitude activates the brain's default mode network, a system engaged during restful wakefulness. It's in this state that we daydream, reflect, and connect unrelated ideas. These are the conditions where creativity thrives. I wasn't trying to be imaginative. I had simply cleared enough noise for creativity to return. I learned that creativity doesn't always need inspiration, it needs space. Constant stimulation had buried mine, but in stillness, old sparks reignited. Ideas flowed, not because I forced them, but because I let them. Solitude didn't teach me to be creative, it reminded me that I already was. I'd just forgotten how to listen inward. If solitude ever led you to an unexpected creative burst, share it below. And if you haven't felt that yet, maybe it's time to unplug for a while. Like this video if you've rediscovered an old passion in silence. Share it with someone who might need creative space. Sometimes, the most powerful ideas aren't sparked, they're remembered quietly when the world goes still. Chapter 4. Strengthening Decision-Making. For decades, I made decisions in crowded rooms under pressure, amid noise. I believed urgency was clarity. But in solitude, I experienced something new, decisions made without external influence. No boardroom tension, no social approval. Just space to think, uninterrupted. For the first time, I wasn't reacting, I was reflecting. Psychologists note that solitude helps remove cognitive bias. Without group influence, our values become clearer. Dr. Eric Klinenberg explains that being alone increases our ability to process information authentically. In solitude, I could hear my own reasoning, not someone else's opinion bouncing in my head. I realized many past choices weren't truly mine. They were reactions to expectations, cultural, familial, professional. But when alone, I made quieter, more deliberate decisions. They took longer, yes, but they felt like mine. Solitude didn't make me indecisive. It made me intentional. And that made all the difference. If you've ever made a life-changing decision alone, share what gave you clarity. And if you haven't yet, try spending time with your own thoughts. Like this video if solitude helped you make better choices. Share it with someone rushing through everything. Sometimes, the smartest decisions aren't quick. They're just quiet, and they wait until we finally listen. Chapter 5. Building Resilience. My generation wasn't taught to talk about emotions. We were told to toughen up, to push through. But solitude changed that for me. In moments of quiet, I began to notice what I'd spent decades suppressing. Grief, fear, uncertainty, they rose without resistance. And instead of breaking me, they taught me how to bend without falling. Psychologists say solitude fosters resilience by creating space for self-reflection. Dr. Esther Buchholz noted that being alone gives us time to feel, process, and integrate difficult experiences. Without distraction, I had to face myself fully. And though it was uncomfortable, it was also healing. Pain became something I could sit with, not escape from. Solitude became my training ground not for avoidance, but for acceptance. I didn't need to be untouched by hardship. I needed to be present with it patiently. The more I faced discomfort alone, the less power it had over me. Resilience, I learned, isn't loud, it's steady. It's the quiet courage to keep going after the storm. If solitude ever helped you through something hard, name it in the comments. And if you're still walking through it, you're not weak. You're rebuilding. Like this video if you've grown through quiet pain. Share it with someone who needs that strength today. Some healing doesn't come with applause. It comes in silence and stays with us for life. Chapter 6. Cultivating Emotional Balance. Earlier in life, my emotions rose and fell based on the people around me. A compliment lifted me. A cold look crushed me. I was unknowingly outsourcing my emotional stability. But solitude changed that. It gave me room to observe not just others, but myself. With fewer external inputs, my inner rhythm began to settle. Neuroscience shows that solitude stabilizes activity in the amygdala, the brain's emotional control center. Constant stimulation triggers reactivity. Stillness regulates it. When I spent time alone, I wasn't suppressing emotions, I was regulating them. My reactions slowed. My awareness sharpened. I stopped being pulled in every direction. Over time, I noticed something strange. I could feel sadness without spiraling, joy without clinging, anger without exploding. Solitude gave me space not just to feel, but to understand. Emotional balance wasn't the absence of emotion. It was the ability to sit with feeling without being consumed by it. If you found steadiness in your quiet moments, tell us how. And if you haven't yet, maybe it's not about controlling emotion, but creating space for it. Like this video, if solitude helped you feel more clearly. Share it with someone who needs emotional quiet, because sometimes balance doesn't begin with control. It begins with being alone and listening. Final reflection, the quiet strength of solitude. Looking back over 75 years, I'm struck by how long I misunderstood solitude. I saw it as emptiness, as something to escape. But it was space to heal, to think, to return to myself. Solitude didn't isolate me, it restored me. And it did so quietly, without ceremony, without demand. Modern science supported everything I felt. Emotional regulation, creativity, focus, resilience, each strengthened when I stopped running from stillness. We talk so much about connection, but we forget that connection to self is just as vital. Solitude gave me that, not instantly, but gradually, gently, and permanently. If any part of this story echoed your own, say so in the comments. And if you know someone who fears being alone, send them this. Like the video of solitude gave you something unexpected. Share it to keep this message alive. Because what the world calls loneliness may just be the beginning of your greatest strength.